What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, Spine, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. We'll break down what's happening with the economic calendar thus far, what's going on with the overall market, and some very important things that came out with CPI, why the market's actually dropping a bit, so what you should be watching for in terms of the numbers. Before I break anything down about all the numbers of CPI and how this is affecting Tesla in the markets, let me first say that I am not a financial planner. Take nothing I say as financial advice, and then don't forget about the Weeble link. The offer ends very soon. We deposit $500, you're guaranteed 20 free stocks. We deposit $25,000 or more, you're guaranteed 75 of them. All right, so the offer ends in 3 weeks. Anyways, Tesla is dipping a bit, and so is SPY. SPY is also down quite a bit, currently at 512 a share. We saw this big dip because of CPI, and here's how the numbers look so far. Looking at the numbers, we actually have them right here. CPI year over year was 3.5%, a little bit above what the expectation was, a little bit hot. We were expecting 3.4%. We got 3.5% year over year. For month over month, it was 0.4%. That is above the expectation of 0.3%. Core CPI was at 3.8%, a little bit above expectations of 3.7%. And then core CPI month over month was at 0.4%, above expectations of 0.3%. So we got a somewhat hot CPI report. Everything was a little bit hotter than expected, not the best of news. This is what the chart looks like right over here. As you guys could see, for March, we saw this increase in all items CPI. And for all items without food and energy, for core CPI, this went up just a tiny little bit. Not the best of news, if anything, not the best of news for the Fed. We can see what ended up affecting this a lot. All items did go up a little bit month over month. On the month over month basis, food did play somewhat of a role, and we had other things right over here. I'll talk more about this maybe a little bit later on, but for now, just know that things were a little bit hot. So for other things coming out, we are seeing the market dip a bit for the S&P 500, Nasdaq, and the Dow Jones. With the inflationary situation right now, there is some fear now about how the Fed is going to react to this. I was looking at the Fed's website about how interest rates are being adjusted. I'm not really seeing much of a change yet, and their website's kind of down. So I'm going to wait a couple of hours before I show you guys that again for what the Fed is projecting for rates. But as of right now, the Fed is in a position where they have to likely be a little bit more on the hawkish side. They can't be way too dovish now, considering that inflation is going back up, and they're not necessarily in the clear just yet. The Fed cannot start cutting immediately. They have to give it more time. There's also news coming out that Intel unveiled its latest AI chip as it looks to take a piece of the a piece of the pie, excuse me, from the leader Nvda, which has an estimated 80% of the market. So that's very important. Intel is now trying to come back and compete. Boeing deliveries fell in the first quarter. They handed over 83 planes in the 3 months ending in March 31st, compared with 157 in the prior quarter. That is something very interesting. And besides that, Costco has struck gold. Literally, the retailer has sold 1 ounce bars made of nearly 24K gold since summer of 2023. So that is not bad whatsoever. We're seeing a lot more improvements, and that's great news for them. So I just wanted to call out and talk about like the main headlines. There's more news about Tesla. I'm going to talk more about all of this involving India and things like this a little bit later on. But for now, just know that Elon Musk is planning to meet Modi. I'll make another video about that and break more things down about that. I just want to focus a lot more on the charts, at least for the time being. So what's going on with the charts now? How are things looking in my personal opinion? Let's start off with Tesla and break down SPY and the others. So for Tesla, our resistance happens to be at 175 and also at 175.8. That's going to be our 20 EMA and also our resistance zone. And then for support, it's 173.9 followed by 173 flat. So if we lose 173, we're falling all the way down, in my opinion, to about 170.5. If that fails us, 167.8 is coming. One thing we could say is that Tesla is still technically on an uptrend. It's still holding very, very nicely compared to the market. So Tesla's gaining some strength ever since Elon Musk made that announcement about the robo-taxi. Tesla's still showing more strength than the markets. It's not falling as hard as SPY and the QQQ and the others. However, I do want to note that there is a risk of it dropping a bit more after the CPI report, especially if the market drops it down lower. So make sure you watch that 173 support and then watch and see if we end up getting closer to 170. There is a risk of it dipping a little bit more, but it is still showing some strength, so it might not collapse and drop all the way down to like 165 or anything like that too quickly. It should hold up a lot better compared to SPY and the others, but just know there's a risk of a little bit more downside because of how the market is looking. So just be very, very mindful of that. How about SPY? It's still dipping right now. There's no sign of this thing bouncing. SPY got a little push to about 521. This was just a liquidity grab. The reason they pumped it at the end of the day yesterday was because they're getting ready for this big drop. This was all part of their game and all part of their plan. So SPY got a very, very big drop all the way down to 512, and we're barely around 512.5 this support. Our key resistance, if we do break back above 512.5, is going to be closer to 514 to 515. And if we continue to lose 512.5, which is what we're doing right now, there is a risk of it coming all the way down towards 510.5, very, very close to that support, the 510 range, which is not the best of news, at least for uh, you know, different investors out there. So I could see it getting very close to 510.5. If that fails, let's watch 508.5 followed by 506. So there could be a bigger dip coming to SPY, could continue to drop a little bit more because the chart is still looking weak right now. There's no sign of a bounce. So just be prepared for that, just to be safe. It's going to base eventually. I'm not saying it's going to crash forever. It's going to base, but there's no sign that's ready to base just yet. There is a risk of it dipping a little bit more. So you want to be very careful when trading SPY and looking at it. So we'll see where this thing ends up basing at. I do want to note there's a risk of it dropping a bit more. So be prepared for that. Same thing goes for the QQQ. We just lost 436, a key support. So the next target is going to be all the way down to 434. That's going to be our next critical support. If you lose that, watch 432 and then 430. Overall, the QQQ is looking a bit more bearish. Got this big bar to the downside, and we're approaching this next support at 435. So we're looking a little bit more parabolic. We're seeing some weakness after this liquidity grab. We did see this thing pop with this wick in the morning because they were getting ready for this dump, and that's where the dump has come. So 435 is on the table now. CPI was a little bit hotter than expected. Market is not too happy about that, and this is also getting dragged down partially thanks to Nvda. Nvda retested its 20 EMA. It's dipping a bit. We're going to be watching 834 as key support. Could drop all the way back down there and retest it. If we lose this, watch 830, and eventually 825 is going to be our next target. And then we have like even lower supports below that. So we're going to be watching to see how well this holds. If we lose 820, we could get very, very close to the lower 800s. So 805. This is like very close to where our 200 EMA was. But anyways, like I said before, Nvidia is showing some weakness. We're going to be watching to see how well it holds this 834 area. If we lose this, watch 830, and eventually we could be falling to 825 and 820. So you want to be very, very mindful of this, and just know that Nvidia is showing weakness, which could drag down the QQQ. So please be careful. For Aapl, we have resistance at 169, and our support is going to be around 168 flat. We'll have to see how well we hold this. There is a risk of this dipping a little bit more. We're still looking kind of weak, so this could drag the market down a little bit more. All right, guys, so we're seeing signals the market could sink a bit more because CPI was hotter than expected. So this could slow Tesla down a bit, okay? This could cause Tesla to dip even more to the supports I called out. However, Tesla will eventually base, and just know that Tesla is showing more strength than the overall market. It's not dipping as hard. So we're going to give Tesla some time and we'll see how things go. But just know and just remember, CPI was a little bit hotter than expected. Not the best of news for the Fed. This incentivizes the Fed to be more hawkish later on. All right, guys, I'll make another video about Elon Musk and the others a little bit later, but I just want to focus on CPI for now. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you all so much for listening. Have a great day and get ready for some interesting volatility. Thanks again, guys, and peace out.